Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Tonight is not only about celebrating the people in front of the camera, it's also about recognizing the artists who design the beautiful worlds our characters inhabit.
Let's take a look at the incredible work they do creating the overall appearance of their films. Here are tonight's nominees for Achievement in Production Design. Black Panther, production design by Hannah Beachler and set decoration by Jay Hart.
And the Oscar goes to Hannah Beachler, production design, Jay Hart, set decoration. For Black Panther.
This is the first Oscar nomination for Hannah Beachler. She is the first African American to be nominated in this
category. Hey, Delora.
Hey, Ashley. How you doing?
I'm good, girl. How are you?
I'm well. Well,
girl, I am beyond thrilled to introduce our latest In Conversation interview.
Girl, it's epic.
And it's so timely as we wrap up Black History Month and kick off Women's History Month today with a chat with Academy Award-winning production designer Hannah Beachler.
My mind is blown. We talked to a person who actually owns an Oscar.
Exactly. Hannah made history in 2019 when she became the first African American to be nominated as well as win the Oscar for Best Production Design for Black freaking Panther.
And get this, she's worked on projects like Moonlight, Lemonade, On the Run 2. Like, her resume, Black is King. I mean, her resume is just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
She is an immense talent.
I'll also add Creed to that. I mean, she has done so many well-known films and projects.
Fruitvale Station.
For sure. Yeah, that was her first, I believe, with Ryan Coogler. So, guys, we hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did. So let's listen in. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for having me. How are you all today? Hi.
We are so excited to have you today to continue our In Conversation series we've been getting into with different industry insiders, as Delora always puts it.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, we cannot wait to delve into this with you, Hannah, because as we know, you have worked on some major projects such as Black Panther and Lemonade and Moonlight, just to list a few. So we'll start the combo off as we do with each of our guests, and that's just walking us and our listeners through the highlights of your journey thus far, from growing up in Centerville, Ohio, to making history as the first African American to be nominated and win the Academy Award for Best Production Design for Black Panther. Amazing.
Wow. It always kind of blows me away to hear it, right?
Yeah.
Highlights. I mean, there's been many highlights. One, I think the biggest highlight is meeting Ryan Coogler, who I've worked with and known for 10 years. Now it's been 10 years. It's crazy to think that's how long ago Fruitvale Station was. Obviously, a big highlight is working with Beyoncé more than once, 3 times. And to have Park, be a part of my family and create a family. Well, the Academy Award, that's a pretty big highlight.
Say so.
That nomination, that day. And that night, certainly any of the other accolades that my colleagues and peers have, bestowed on me, and I accepted very humbly, and getting to meet some of my favorites, some of my meeting my mentors and meeting the giants in the industry and moving in those rooms is, it's wild. And And then just looking back at my career and knowing that I was able to move through the industry. Like I did it, I as scary as it all seemed in the beginning, I did it. So that's always a highlight to think about.
Absolutely. You talk about, the folks you've been able to be in the room with. I mean, you're naming the biggest of the big hand. I even heard you on a previous podcast talk about Glenn Close and Lady Gaga and all these folks that you got to encounter.
Jeff Goldblum.
I freaking adore Jeff Goldblum. Has it gotten easier for you when you're in those rooms to kind of feel like, mama, I made it? Or is it still just that, oh my gosh, eyes wide, still can't believe that I'm here feeling for you?
It's eyes wide. I'm still very much an Ohio girl,
Me too, girl. Me too.
I take my son with me pretty much to, I have to drag him nowadays. He doesn't, he's, I have another event. But, take him with him. You will run around and be like, oh my gosh, look who's over there. And oh my gosh. And just me wanting to tell the people who had such an influence how I feel. Like you don't really get that opportunity to say those words to the people who moved you, who, helped stoke the fire of the drive that you have to tell them like, you did this for me. And thank you. What you did is important. And so that's always been, I remember telling Beyonce, we were working on Black is King, and I, finished up the sort of whirlwind stuff that I was doing in LA with her. And I was running out because I was doing something else. I can't remember what it was at this point. She was so lovely. And she had sent me a lovely note and orchids when I was nominated. And I said to her, had I had someone to look at like you when I was 5, when I was 10.
Absolutely.
And Hannah, now you are that example for the folks who want to follow along in those footsteps. And listen, anytime your son doesn't want to get dragged to an event, you can call me or Delora. We will be more than happy.
It's good to know that I will always have a date to these things, because I was like, I want to go by myself. And my son now is over dressing up. He don't stand there and he doesn't care anymore. So it's like, I might get a call like, look.
Anytime. Sorry, friends and family, but I'm dropping everything I have going on if I get that call from Hannah. I'm just saying.
But yeah, so it's a lot of that is really awesome. I'm still in awe. I think it's different. Like when I'm in a room with like stars, I'm very starstruck, and I don't really hide it. And so
we love that.
And then I think when I'm in a room with the business side of the industry, I'm business.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not too starstruck in that sense. I need to make sure that I'm dotting the I's and crossing the T's and closing the deals.
And you've definitely proved that with your resume for sure. Yes. Your talent is so immense. Like, oh my gosh. So you mentioned being an Ohio girl. I'm currently in Ohio, and Ashley, born and raised in Ohio.
Absolutely.
What was it like growing up with such creative parents? Your dad's an architect, your mom's an interior designer. And in what ways did they cultivate your creativity?
We were so isolated. So we were out in like Washington Township, like in the 70s before it was developed. So it was like my dad, designed and built this like super contemporary modern house and just like plopped it in the middle of the woods. And so it was just like us, my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad, and they kind of created this world. Like they built a world, and it was, I look back at it and it was it's surreal in a way that happened, that they were able to do that. And so you're so enveloped in it that it just becomes a part of who you are. And my dad was very, vocal about what he did and explaining it to us and letting us help him with things and hands-on and being in his office. And my mom would have these art openings in the bottom field with, Bing Davis out of Dayton, Ohio, who's a big artist in Dayton, and the Wright and the people walking amongst the artwork. And my aunt was an artist. And so it was just there, you know what I mean? It was just like my mom would have these elaborate parties all the time. I mean, elaborate parties. So there was always world building. And, in the morning time, she'd tell us all to get out of the house. And, you know, like Lord of the Flies, we would run into the woods and, you know, my brothers would, you know, chase us with, you know, motorbikes and BB guns, and we would build our little forts and whatnot. And then she'd ring a bell and we'd come out, you know, and eat and then go back in. So they very much knew. We rode horses. It was like at 5 years old, it was like, get on the horse, go to the candy store, get your Jolly Ranchers, ride the horse back.
Wow.
I love it.
I kind of grew up in this weird world that my mom created, because she was a stay-at-home mom, you know, for the first maybe probably 10 years of my life. So it was like this, it almost is like I tell people and they're like, right. And it's like, no, really, we ate off the land for like 6 years. There was no, you know, my mom had a just tremendous garden. She would make salads with like tiger lilies and candy out of wild roses. And
I love it. Wow.
so, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it almost was gonna happen. One of us was gonna like take it in out of the 6 brothers and sisters.
Oh, it's 6 of you all. Wonderful. Where are you? I'm curious. Are you?
I'm in middle, of course, middle. I'm the loudest. So, you know, I'm the one. And it kind of went into me, and my dad kind of focused. I think he saw like, okay, she's the one that's gonna kind of tend towards the creative a little bit more. So he would take me around his work and his job sites, and I helped him. He would, you know, like come out and help me build stuff and, you know, teach me about tools and stuff like that. So, you know, it was kind of there. And I kind of rejected it when I got older. I was like, oh no, I don't want to be, I'm a city girl. You know, I'm going to go and be shopping and all these things. And I'll never, you know, building things is so ew. But as I got older, it just sort of kind of like, you know, full circle. It's like, I am my dad. And which I often say was a workaholic. I'm definitely that, you know, I can see my parents in other ways. So the creative part was just going to be there. Like my mom would change our house every season. You'd come home and it'd be like a whole different interior. Christmas was insane. So it was always there. And I look back and it was like, that's awesome. You know,
for
like,
sure.
It was unique and it was awesome. As much as I hated it at the time, you know, I was a kid, you just have to rebel, like, oh, I hate this. But I look back and I was very lucky.
That's beautiful. I love that. I'm a new parent, so thinking about how you have the control of creating an environment for your children, like that kind of stuck out to me. So that's beautiful to hear. So often we hear people leaving the nest and they're moving to either New York, LA, now Atlanta, to pursue a career in entertainment. What was it like starting your career in Louisiana?
Well, you know, at the time, I had family in Louisiana. My brother and his family lived here for quite some time. The tax incentive was booming in New Orleans at the time. So there were so many movies. My brother, you know, was always like, there's movies everywhere. You got to come to New Orleans. And I was like, oh, the South? Like, I got to go to LA. And he's like, you can afford it. And I was like, okay, the South sounds great. I couldn't afford New York or LA. I had a toddler and I was a single mom and I was just graduating from Wright State University and I needed the support of my family. So that was really the driving force of me going to Louisiana, because I knew I had some support and foundation and base there to get started. Not just kind of be alone, because that's scary. And being all the way in LA, so far from Ohio, it's like I had no support there. And then New York, same thing. So I was lucky to kind of come in when the films were really picking up. And that's how I got started. I just sort of like went from production to production until someone finally hired me. And then that end of that summer was Katrina. And then I had come back to Shreveport, northern Louisiana, and started working there, and eventually ended up back in New Orleans and kind of have been there ever since. And they still have films that come there. Their tax incentive went away, but is back now. You know, when it went away, Atlanta started booming and it built an infrastructure really quickly. So Atlanta is a great place. It's still affordable. It is kind of becoming a little more pricey as far as living, but it's still affordable when you think of it in comparison with the coasts. And you're going to be able to find yourself working for something that's more independent or something that's very large.
What I love about that too is it's so helpful to understand that there is still a pathway. Like if LA or New York is not your first step, there is still a pathway in some other major cities to consider. So definitely appreciate that knowledge drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So production designer is not an occupation everyday people know or really understand. What do you do? And what sparked your interest in the field?
Well, sometimes I describe it as like an architect, right? I'm an architect of the film and I'm designing, the world that is in the film, the characters sort of live their lives in front of. The other way to describe it is if you look at a still of a movie, your favorite movie, and you were to take out the actors, everything that you see without them is what I do.
Wow.
For the whole film.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a way to describe like what am I doing that you see? And
yes.
that's what I'm doing.
You've created some gorgeous, gorgeous worlds. I'm thinking Black Panther. I mean, all of Black Panther, all of like Lemonade. What sparked your interest?
I've always loved film, and I would sit in front of the TV and just watch, way back when I was watching, Fred Astaire and all of these old movies that were on because you only had 3 channels and you didn't have a lot of options. So whatever was on, you're staring at, and I would let myself get lost in those things. Again, that was already something that was happening in my world of world building. And what I learned as I got older and went into film school is that I sort of related to film in so much as the environments that I was seeing in the film. Like that's sort of where I was finding the emotion, also in the acting and the characters and whatnot. But I really was like entranced by like where they were and like how did they do certain things and Star Wars, like, oh my gosh, they're in space. How do they do that? And
yes,
that, some type of visual effects at the time, like, oh my gosh. So that was really like kind of took my breath away. And then I went into fashion design in college, sort of my answer to not doing what my dad did. And but still being creative in some
very
way.
Creative, yes.
Acceptable to my dad, like, oh, okay, so it's we'll take fashion design. And then I kind of was like, not fashion design. And I started getting into film with friends and, making sort of like these underground movies and stuff like that. And I was always the person who kind of got the stuff, like we're going to do this scene and it should have stuff in it. Like, it's supposed to be a motel room. So I would get this. And then, as I got older and again in film school, learned that the stuff getter was also the art department. And that's where I started. And that's how I kind of, a friend of mine was like, I'm working on this short film and I need help in the art department. And that was when it was like, yes, that is my direction, is art department.
So I have a quick follow-up to that. So you work closely with the director, and do you work closely with the costume designers? Like, for example, speaking of Black Panther, did you work closely with Ruth Carter?
Oh my goodness, yes. As a designer, I'm working really closely with the cinematographer. On this one, Autumn Durall and Ryan, and then of course Miss Ruth Carter. Y'all, you heard me, Ruth Carter. I get to see Ruth all the time. Icon. So that's awesome. Ruth is like amazing, and I love going into her area. I mean, she has a whole building to herself with like every floor has clothes on. Like just it's like a factory of things just happening constantly. And we're working together on colors. We're working together on tone and texture. What is she going to bring to it? How are the sets and the costumes and the cinematography working together, or how are they working against each other to create whatever psychology is necessary for the scene? So we're always, in conversation and meetings. I'm looking at her stuff. She's looking at my stuff. I'm sending her images. So yeah, we work really closely together, and I think that it shows, and that's the same on any film.
I actually have a follow-up question too. As we're getting closer to the Oscars, obviously, Best Production Design is up again this year. Did you have any projects this year that was like, oh, that was a standout favorite for me within your field?
Tragedy of Macbeth with Stefan
Yes.
Duchamp, production design. And then Joel Cohen directing. be absolutely stunning. And I love it,
and it's in black and white too,
it's in
right?
black and white. And it reminds me of a French film called Last Year in Marienbad, which is, very almost theatrical in the way, in the tone that it is. Everything's very exaggerated. Another one that kind of tips into the essence of Dr. Caligari's Cabinet, and a German expressionist film from the 20s, I believe. If I remember, my film history teacher is probably rolling over like, oh my God, that's so wrong, Hannah. It's like, I know, I remember, I swear. But it's just art, right? It's something you don't often see in film. It's not realism, and it's not fantasy. It lives somewhere in the middle of that. So I really appreciated that. But of course, you have your beautiful films like Dune and Nightmare Alley, and every one of them is absolutely stunning. But for me, the standout is The Tragedy of Macbeth. And then Denzel, gives this beautiful performance, which just breathes life. And of course, Frances McDormand, that breathes life into the sets themselves and make them the art pieces that they are. So I'm rooting for that. And the art director from that is working on Black Panther too. So he worked on the first one too. So it's like,
well, there you go.
Family.
The other Oscar nominee is Don't Look Up, as the supervising art director worked on that. And he also worked on Dune. So we've got some people in the office that are got their fingers crossed, and I'm there behind them, hoping that they walk away with a statue.
Absolutely. So what's the process like for you when you're beginning a new production?
It's my process is the same pretty much for every film, not dependent on size, whether it's small or big. And it always starts with a script and a conversation with the director. And then I put together like a deck, which is, many pages of like a mood board, if you will, of referential images as I'm reading the script. Like, what am I seeing? Colors, textures, place, city. If it's a period piece, pulling images from that period that I think fit the tone of the film. So I build this together, and then I go through it with the director, and we talk about like that, or that lighting, or that colorway, or whatever we're kind of looking at. And then I start building my team. I like to work with the same people over and over if they're available. And then I would work with a location scout, depending on if it's something like Panther, where we're doing a lot of building and it's a lot of world building. Then I'm working with illustrators right away, and we're starting to do concepting and research and development. And I'm doing a lot of research and building like the Wakandan Bible and whatnot. And so
Wakanda Bible.
Yeah. And if it's something like No Sudden Move, I did the Soderbergh film last year, or I guess it was a year ago, or 2 years ago now. And that was all on location in Detroit. And so we start looking for locations, and how are we going to retrofit these locations? And that was also a period piece. So it was like, how are we going to bring Detroit back to 1955, which was a ton of fun. And Soderbergh is an awesome guy. So it was a great pleasure to work on that film. So that's sort of the process. And then you start building, and you start doing the thing. And then it becomes a lot about just, budgets, management, making sure that, the sets are going up, that they're working, walking through with directors, lots of meetings, lots of conversations. On something like Panther, there's so many departments that, as a department head for myself, I have to sort of touch every single department on a film. If you want a production design, you will be involved with every single department on a film.
That's good to know in terms of the collaboration aspect of filmmaking.
Absolutely. It's a lot to juggle. And there's a lot that rides on art department, because what we do affects everything. It affects stunts, it affects visual effects, it affects special effects, it affects whatever specialty units you might have. So it's, picture cars, stunt cars, everything has to kind of be filtered through props, art, through my department. So it's a big undertaking, but it's,
you love it.
I love it. I do.
And you're so good at it.
Clearly. In a 2019 LA Times article regarding your, again, historic Oscar nomination, you said, it's so weird to quote you to you, my thought is I have to harness this moment and turn it into more. I can't just let it slip away and become a big nothing after. What has that more looked like for you since your win?
For me, it's been, the more has been the ability to really give back to people who look like me, who struggle like me, who were single parents like me and still had to do the thing. And so, it allowed me to be able to start a scholarship fund and to start a foundation that will bring me to Midwest colleges to talk to students about the industry and how to get into the industry. Because when you're going to a UCLA or NYU, Forrest Whitaker could just pop in and let you pitch to him and then get you a movie. Or, Steven Spielberg could just pop into UCLA. That's not happening at Wright State. That's
Right.
not happening at UC. That's not happening at University of Iowa. That's not, in Des Moines. And these are the places that I'm going. And a lot of these colleges can't afford to bring these people there because it's, they want, plane, hotel, and you got to pay them an honorarium. You got to get them back, cars, that adds up. So what my foundation is any request that comes in, we pay for that request for me to get there, because at the end of the day, it's about the students. And what Panther did for me that more is that now I can get the work that I need to get to put the money where I need to put it, right? Yes. So, and that goes beyond film making. That's speaking to corporations about equity and equality within their own companies, using my department and my business edicts about how to treat employees and how to have equity in the office, in the meeting room, as much as you do creatively, and why it's important for Black people to tell their stories. And also, why it's so important to not just have them tell their stories, but be the ones that are also looking after the stories when it comes to art department, cinematography, costume design, because there's nuances within the culture that not everybody's going to understand. I was offered a movie that was about Asian culture. And what I said to the producers was, you need to find yourself an Asian production designer because they exist.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So you're not going to pull in a diversity hire and just, say, well, there she is. And it's not the right hire, and it's lazy because you already have my phone number. You need to find a new phone number. And they did.
Wow.
Had I taken that job, that person would not have had that job. And that person would now not be looking at a career because it was a big job.
Right.
And, getting the phone calls, getting the next job, and being that example for that culture, that they can also do this, that there is a place at the table as well. That is the mindfulness that needs to be happening in Hollywood. And I think that's a lot of the argument that people are saying, like, well, these roles are meant for X, Y, and Z. Why can't you, why can't a Black person do this role? Why are you taking roles knowingly and then being surprised by backlash at the end of the day? So it's like, you have to say no, and you have to force the companies to do the work. And I always say, if Beyonce can find 15 Black synchronized swimmers,
there we go.
Y'all can find 5 art directors. You know what I'm saying?
That is so true.
This woman can find something that people don't even think exists. And it was and there was no question that she was going to do that. Then I don't want to hear the excuse why you can't actually do the minimum.
And as we know, that's not everybody's mindset. So I think that that's incredible to be mindful, as you said, of trying to allow those opportunities to continue, given now the platform that you have, the success you have, and the voice you have. And I just want to go back to your statement about your foundation and scholarships. How do people find you or find that information to take advantage of the scholarship funds you've put into place?
Well, the one scholarship I have is for students at my alma mater and Wright State University. And they can go onto their webpage and look at that. It's for film students who are commuters who are parents, who, and that's what Wright State is. It's a commuter school, right? It's for people who have jobs and are taking classes, as well as working, as well as parenting. So, and you have to do these film projects, and that's expensive. So that's where my one scholarship is at. And then the other scholarship is through Neon Movies, which is for high school students who want to go into communications, media, or film.
Oh, it's through the Neon Theater?
It's through their 501c(k)(3), yes.
Cool.
So Jonathan, I went to college with him at Wright State, who kind of runs the theater. And I think he owns the theater at this point. So it's like,
That's a Dayton staple right there.
That's right. And I hope to be doing more with that as much as I can do. I don't have a website for Chinchilla Foundation at this moment about that. People can go through my agent to find me. And that's how I usually get requests to come to colleges, to come to speak, to come to do those events. That's kind of how I work right now. I'm a one-woman show. So I'm doing what I can, and a lot of my goals are to be able to work with bigger companies, to do things like start when I was up in Detroit, started working with the people that work with the Black Bottom Archival Foundation. We kind of lost our way after COVID started and wanted to do a living museum there that connects all of these places that sort of were disrupted and destroyed as they were thriving. And that kind of takes me to the Metropolitan Museum exhibit, the Seneca Village exhibit there, which will be up for 3 years. Before yesterday, they could fly. So I do have that exhibit up as part of this sort of wanting to connect these communities. So that's one thing you can check out, which is really exciting. And it opened November 5th. It'll be open for 3 years. And it includes sort of artists throughout the diaspora, through Europe, through the continent of Africa, through America. And so, yeah, you can go on the Met website and look at that as well. So that's also working with their education department, Sue Haley, who is hoping to bring that in and work with students to sort of curate in their own way that exhibit.
That's an awesome opportunity.
Sounds like a field trip, Ashley.
Exactly.
Definitely, you have to see it. It's the first time in the history of the Met that a Black person actually curated in that wing.
Really?
So,
wow.
They don't have any exhibit. They have Wengichi Mutu has had a lot of exhibits. The Met has, as one of the biggest art institutions in the world, has had a sordid past. And that was what that was about, was sort of forcing them to look at like the discrepancy and inequity of artists, I'd say all over the world, but African-American artists for 150 years. Wow. And a lot of what Seneca Village is it was a community destroyed so they could put Central Park there. And the Met is actually like 10 minutes away. So it's like a little bit of their institution has to do with the destruction of a community. And I think this is the beginning of sort of making amends for that. And that's another, I'm proud to have brought that design and worked with these artists that are absolutely fantastic from all over the world. And not only did their artwork come in for the exhibit, the Met, part of the deal was the Met acquires their artwork for their collection, which will be another first.
We're just making history left and right, aren't we, Hannah?
That is another history-making moment, I would say. I'm hoping to extend the scholarships in New Orleans, but my hometown kind of is where my focus is for a lot of stuff.
Well, as a Daytonian, born and raised, I appreciate you, and a Wright State Raider. So thank you so much.
Right, go Wright State.
Yes.
Yeah, you got Julia Reichert and Steve Bognar, who are also Academy Award winners and professors. Well, Julie is retired, but Steve is still a professor at Wright State. They have their own sort of Hall of Fame there.
So with your resume of projects from Black Panther to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Moonlight, which was just the stillness and the beauty in that film, just amazing. Lemonade and Black is King. Did you know these projects would be placed in the African American cultural canon? Like, how does it feel to know that your work has made such cultural impact?
I mean, no, nobody knows. You know what I mean? You're working on something, you're kind of like in this tunnel, and mostly you're just praying to get through it. Like, are we going to make it? Are we going to finish? Because it's always really hard. It's a really hard industry. It's hard to make a movie, and it takes a lot out of you. So you kind of just want to get through it. You hope you're doing the right thing. You hope people will respond, whether they love it or hate it. You hate for anybody to be indifferent to it.
That's interesting, Hannah.
Yeah, I think I've always thought that. It's like, hate it, love it, nothing about it, because, hate is an emotion.
There you go.
If you have an emotion, then I had done my job. I didn't say it, you had to love it,
But that's art, right? Art is like you want to evoke some emotion, right?
There's plenty of things I hate that's art, and it's like, well, it did something to me, and and it's rent free in my head. I'm thinking about it.
Very true.
Job, I'm thinking about it.
It's just basically for all this blood, sweat, and tears we put into this, we better have did something that was gonna leave a lasting impression, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny because people don't really give that emotion credence. They think, well, if you hate it, then it was no good. And it's like, yeah, but you're still talking about it. You're still hating on it. You still want it to go away more than the people who love it. Like, I love it, and then move on. You're still out here typing on it.
But these projects, I mean,
it's all over. Like, I watched Creed 3 times the other day.
That's what I'm saying. Creed, and exactly.
I gasped. Creed 3 times. It's really the only one I can watch. But yeah, you don't ever know. Working on the last Panther, it was just like, oh Lord, I hope I don't get dragged on Twitter. I think I said that 3 or 4 times. I was like, Black Twitter, don't come for me. I did my best. My best is good enough. And
girl, I went and saw that in a theater we rented out a theater.
All
Black people just to see Black Panther. Okay, that's what that movie did.
Well, it's so funny. I gave birth.
Okay.
I gave birth on February 2nd, and I was like, Black Panther comes out, I think that weekend or weekend after. I limped my way to see Black Panther. I'm so glad I can tell somebody the story that understands, like,
because I'm going to tell Ryan about it too. So look, I'm going to tell.
My blood pressure was through the roof, but I didn't care. I was like, I cannot.
Hannah, guys, wait. Hannah is laughing because this is how hard Delora this is a true life story, guys.
This is
true life.
I remember I was like, okay, so baby girl, if I could get her, if I could pump some bottles, my husband drove me. I was like, you okay with the newborn? Okay. This is our first job and everything. Made my way to see Black Panther because I could not wait. Wakanda Forever. And it was worth it. It was so worth it.
It was.
Thank you. First of all, it was like the hype and the excitement, but you all delivered. Okay.
Tenfold.
Delivered.
Yeah,
so
it's so yeah, you don't ever expect it. We were all blown away by like the response. Ryan and I remember one time we were just like, oh man, they told us like, okay, you got to make X amount of dollars for this thing to be a success. And I had never heard that amount of dollars. And we went in his office and he was like, I don't know, nobody's coming to see this movie, Hannah. I said, I don't know you after this. You know what I'm saying? I was like, that's a lot of money. And I don't know that it's that good of a movie.
Little did y'all know.
So
y'all are the only Marvel movie that has been nominated for Best Picture. They tried to do it for Spider-Man No Way Home. No success. Not to say it, but Black Panther has done it. Okay. Like,
and blessed and grateful for all of that. I mean, I think more than anything, it was just, for me, it wasn't even the movie. It was the response to the movie. It was seeing people's faces and excitement and the videos every day. And that was what, I mean, that was everything to me. That meant everything to me. That means that's what made me go harder on this new one and push harder and fight harder for the things I think are right. And just 2 years of just we got to show up. We got to show up because we can't go backwards. We can't disappoint anybody. We can't bring down our community. We can't, we got Chadwick looking down on us. We got to do right by him. We got to do right by our people. And so you just go as hard as you can. And you're kind of a shell at the end of it. I'm already a shell. I'm just working on adrenaline at this point to make it to the end. Because there's a light. I see it. It's like 8 weeks away. We laid everything out. Every last drop of blood is out there. So that's really what we do, and it's hard. So that's all I can hope for, is that people look at it and say like, okay, all right, they went hard. They did their thing. We're okay. We're good. We're lifted. We're not brought down. This isn't,
Black trauma. It's right. It's Black excellence. It's Black excellence.
It's teaching our kids joy first. Yes. You're going to learn all the other bullshit. You will learn it. You have time to learn it.
But we celebrate today.
Can you learn this first? Can you have pride about this first? Can you be proud of this first? And then once you have that foundation that's unbreakable and unmovable, you're going to learn about the rest of it.
Ooh,
and then
you're giving me chills.
It can't shake you the way it shook me. It can't tear you back down the way it did me, right? That has to end. We may never be able to end all the bullshit, but what we can end is how our kids are traumatized by it. And how then they live the rest of their lives because of it. So if I do not do that with the ancestors watching me, and I lay my head down and die, then I would not have done my job. That's why I do this work, because it is the most powerful medium out there. And so you must know that there are people dedicated in this field of glamour and beauty that are fighting behind the scenes to make sure that you are seen, and that your tears and the way you walk through this world is seen. I laugh and I dance and I do all this stuff, but at the core of my being, that is why I do this work.
Now, a lot of people have gotten me on the brink of tears, but you did it. You have gotten me. Oh my goodness. I know I can't speak for all of Black America, but I can speak for myself. We feel it and we appreciate it so much. This project meant so much. And so many of your projects, all of them actually.
All of them.
Have meant so much to us. So just know that we feel it and we see it and we appreciate it so much, especially those of us who are obsessed with these types of things and this line of work, such as me and Delora. Yes. But you kind of moved me on to my next question, which was, again, we talked about you working with the elite in Hollywood, including the Beyoncé, okay, and the late, great Chadwick Boseman. But is there a story or a memory of Chadwick that you'd like to share with us?
Chadwick was always so intense on set, right? He was in character all the time. So whenever you talk to Chadwick, he had the accent, he was Black Panther, he was T'Challa, but he was always lifting everybody up on set. Again, it wasn't an easy film, and it all trickles down, right? So whatever the people at the top bring is what emanates across the set. And I always remember Chadwick like singing and dancing. And the first time I met him with just this big smile and, brought me in and gave me a hug. And every time I saw him and I was with my son, he would be Dominic, he always remembered my son. He was just that person. And he was so spiritual as well, and that emanated. So it was always a smile and a warm hug from Chadwick. And that's as much as I knew him, working with him and being around him at events and stuff. It was always just the acknowledgement that I know you, and hey, how you doing? And how's your son? And those are the little things I think that people like Chadwick, who have so much on their plate and have so many expectations, that those are the things that they do that, like, okay, this is someone who's special. So, and who brought that character to so many young people in such a dynamic and beautiful way. And so to have that gone that was like, how do we do this? And of course, it would take Ryan Coogler to do it right.
And speaking of Ryan,
phenomenal director. Yes,
absolutely. Is there anything, I know Marvel And all these projects are notoriously tight-lipped, but is there anything you can share with us regarding the Black Panther sequel?
Well, the only thing I can say, because I know they got cameras somewhere, right? And Ryan don't tell me much because he's like, I know you have a big mouth, so he won't tell me stuff. I'm always like, who's the music person? And he's like, I ain't telling you. And he's right not to. But what I can say is that I can honestly say that no one is expecting what is coming. Like not even me. I've been like, what? Every day I just look at Ryan like, I just don't know how. I don't know what. We must have all been in a trance to it. Like, I don't know what the people are gonna know. That's the reaction you're getting from me.
Wow.
So it is something.
So
And
Hannah, what you're saying is Killmonger is coming back. He's not
I'm
dead.
not saying any words like that.
Because when I tell you that Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger had the best last line of any villainous, quote unquote, because I put that in quotes, villainous character that has ever existed in my mind. I would be fascinated if somehow they got him back into the sequel.
I don't know, but he was one of the best villains.
Yes.
Because you love him and hate him. I mean, you kind of love him more than you hate him, but and then it's Michael B. So, he's got that kind of charm.
Exactly.
Was
that his first time being a villain too? Like he's always the hero.
Yes. But inspired many a Halloween costume, inspired many a woman to ask her man to start his lock journey. I mean, they're just
you aren't gonna get me either. So I know. I think it's gonna blow people away. I think no one is expecting anything that's coming. It's really the most unique thing. So I'm super excited for people. And again, you can only hope, like, again, I've been in this tunnel, right? So for me, it's like I can barely be objective at this point. I just hope people see everything that we put into it and all the love that we put into it and the hard work.
I can't wait to see what worlds you created, like what new places we're going. So
I can't wait to share it. I really can't, and so I'm proud of it. And I think it's a good place to sort of like now time for me to sort of adventure into other arenas for a while and then maybe come back to film again.
Okay. Well, it's so funny that you say that because in one of your interviews with the Hollywood Reporter, you mentioned wanting to do a period piece, and you have done that, I guess, in with your project, the one you mentioned from the 50s, with Soderbergh. I find that fascinating, considering you are the visionary of the Afrofuturism of the Black Panther project. So, what type of narrative would you like to lend your vision to? Because when I think period piece, I'm thinking Bridgerton,
the Gilded Age.
Really right. I thought that was great. I loved how I loved that world that they built for that. It was very gilded and it was very sort of like fantastical and very a little Mary Poppins, but I did like that world. What kind of world? I mean, I don't know. I'm always up for a challenge. I'm headed for the stage for Broadway. So that's with hometown favorite Shelley Williams. She's a stage director. She comes out of Dayton, Muse Machine, and she directed Aida, the return of Aida. And so we're going to get together on a musical coming at the end of the year, or I guess December 2022. And
sounds like we're making a trip to New York.
Yeah. It's going to open in London and then go to West End and then go to New York, go to Broadway.
Nice.
Okay. So, well, I haven't been to London yet either. So,
I mean, I'm super excited. So I've only been there once. So I'm really excited to kind of dig in and get familiar with the theater world. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up. And I do want to say this real quick. I will tell you this about Beyoncé, because I always love to talk about her.
Please.
We love to hear it.
She's really fantastic. Such a supporter of women. And on Lemonade, I kind of was sort of like it was a whirlwind because it was so fast. And, she kind of likes to work very organically and she has like a spark, and then it's like you need to set the fire. And so it's fast and furious, and it's kind of nuts and crazy, and that's sort of her style and the park style, and you get really great stuff from it. And so one night we're on Desterham Plantation, and that was a whole, just being hard anyways. But
yes,
we built this kind of paper stage, and for all the reasons for that. And she got up there to do Freedom. It was late. It was like 10 o'clock. There's probably 50 people sitting there. They were putting the playback music on, and they were trying to put the playback music on, and it wouldn't work. And she was like, okay, people were tired, time to go. And so she was like, you know what? Don't worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and sing, and we'll do it that way.
Oh.
So that's what I looked over at the set decorator stand next to me and said, what did she say?
You about to give me a religious experience. Please.
Like, I'm going to go ahead and sing a cappella. And I was like, she's like, because it's late, we need to keep moving. And then we're all kind of like, okay. I was like, I'm kind of looking around like, this is what's happening. Like, what's going to happen? What did she say? And all of a sudden they're like, okay, rolling camera. It's on this big crane, and it's swooping down over the audience towards the stage, and she starts singing. Whoo, when I tell you, the ancestors came up out that ground, and they grabbed every single person up with their light from her voice and lifted us all straight up into the air, and we were floating over this place.
My God.
I can't even tell you what that was like. And her voice carried through this place, through the trees, through the wind. Probably my best memory. It was insane. Just her a cappella, no microphone, no electronics, no backup music, just like the night sky on that plantation and her voice. And it, for me, just destroyed that plantation, just leveled anything it could ever take from any of us as she sang Freedom. And so what a beautiful night that was. And her strength is so much more than anyone will ever know. Will ever know about this woman. You have no idea. And I have so much respect for her and her agency.
Yes.
And fortitude.
Absolutely.
And her unrelentless business mind, no matter what anybody says about her.
She's the GOAT. She is the GOAT. She's absolutely the greatest living entertainer of our generation for me, hands down.
Without question, because I've seen it right up close. Her work ethic, but also watching her as a mother. So I got to work with her before that. I got to work with her after that. To see her as a mother, you realize that she was always that. So she's such a loving person. She knows what she wants. And it was good to see, because I'd always questioned myself advocating for myself. And then falling into the trope of the like Black woman with an attitude, or you're threatening because you're standing up for yourself. But when I saw her do that, not even give a fuck about what anybody thought about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not at all. That did not sway her. That did not move her. She floated above that. And it's something I try to learn every day. And also her graciousness in the face of chaos, in the face of incompetence. Be clear, even around her, and her graciousness is beyond reproach in those situations. And and even with me, because Lemonade wasn't easy, and I know I got like, I'm out of here, and just graciousness. I've learned so much from her in the way of like conducting myself in business, advocating for myself, rising above the trope, the stereotype of being a Black woman in business, and saying what's what, and being truthful and carrying your integrity, and not letting people target you or break you down or make you think what you're doing isn't right or it is wrong because you conduct yourself a certain way. because of what you look like, not holding any of that. So that I learned that from her.
Because that's their problem at the end of
It
the day,
is.
not yours.
100%, you know, and that's hard to separate sometimes.
It is. It is.
Well, because we're living in a world that is not built for us, right? So we're living at the mercy of their decisions, of their thoughts, of their opinions of us in terms of where we've been able to go and what we've been able to do.
That's right. And never getting the benefit of the doubt.
That part.
And if we mention it, we're complaining or it's in our head.
We're sensitive, emotional, overreacting.
I've been told I'm too passionate. Passionate.
Dog whistle. I love that you're very passionate. You're too passionate.
But you don't give me the budget or the tools to do the job.
That's right. or the support staff to do any of it. But let me tell you though, when you win, right there.
You've said more than a word today, Hannah. You said more than a word.
Today, okay.
You said more than you've been doing something to me. That's all I can say. And I have one more question for you, which I'm so sad because I feel like we could talk to you for the rest of the day. But you've given so many gems. You've given such great wisdom and beautiful stories. What advice do you have for those that are hoping to follow this path?
Be resourceful. Know that what you might think is silly in the way to get to the next step is not. So if you feel like, oh, if I reach out to this person on Twitter and DM them, they're not going to get back to me, or that's silly. Or if I mail them a letter, that's stupid or silly. Or if I call up these companies and ask a question that might seem silly, it's not. I did all of those things. I hand wrote a letter to Nancy Haig, the legend, the Coen brothers set decorator, when I was still at Wright State. Handwritten, stamp into the USPS.
I love this
so 4
much.
months later, I get a phone call on my very first Nokia brick. Yes, clear. So can think of the year. Hold it up. I'm talking too loud because I haven't had a cell phone for long. She called me. Wow. And I just was like, this person from Hollywood. I'd never been outside of Dayton at that point. And she's, been working with the Coens for 20 some odd years by that point, and got my letter and read it and read my phone number. And one day just picked up the phone and thought, I guess I have time. I'm going to call this person, and told me about you need to get in the union. And then I said, okay, let me write that down. IATSE. I don't know what that is, but I just now have the internet, so I'm going to look it up. Be resourceful. Don't worry about what people think about you, because they're either going to forget or not answer or whatever, move on, but they're not going to be like this crazy person. They're going to be like, oh, this person's interested in what I do. Let me call them, or let me do something, or I don't have time for it. But you got to take the chance.
Because the worst they can say is no. Or
the worst anybody can say is no. And I can promise you that word does not hurt, because sometimes no, it's God's way of saving you.
Directing you to where you need to go. That's is so right. True.
Sometimes no is God's way of grace. You don't always need to be there, right? And he's saying okay, well, you're going to keep pursuing the thing that I'm going to keep telling you is not the right direction. So pivot, be malleable, adjust, right? Stand in your center, be who you are, and keep your integrity, because your reputation in the film industry, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you have, your reputation is more golden than that. Keep it intact, and people will remember you. They will never remember your first day. They will only ever remember your last. That's it.
Hannah, it has been beyond a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for gracing us on Recapping with Delora and Ashley. Guys, if you didn't pull some gems from this, I don't know.
I don't know
what to tell you guys.
Keep it under a rock. Thank you so much, Hannah. This is incredible. Incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We cannot wait for Black Panther 2. That's all I have.
Wakanda Forever.
Wakanda Forever. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much again for having me. I really appreciate being here. Be able to speak with you ladies today. Thank you.
I stand here stronger than I was yesterday. I stand here with agency and self-worth because of Ryan Coogler, who not only made me a better designer, a better storyteller, a better person. I stand here because of this man who offered me a different perspective of life, who offered me a safe space, who's patient and gave me air, humanity, and brotherhood. Thank you, Ryan. I love you. I'm stronger because of Marvel, who gave me the opportunity to do my best, who supported the vision of this film and lifted us up every day. Victoria Alonso, Kevin Feige, Lou Desposito, and the man with the best laugh ever, Nate Moore. Thank you. I'm stronger because of an art department crew who led with their hearts and brought their experiences, talent, courage, humility, and hard work to the table. Supervising art director Alan Hook and set decorator Jay Hart. Thank you. I'm stronger today because of this wonderful cast who every day stepped into this world and breathed life into it. Because of Ruth Carter and Rachel Morrison and everything they did behind the camera with me. I'm stronger because of a woman who supported me every day that I wanted to give up. This is for you, my friend, Carol Trevino. Rest in power. I'm stronger because of my family who supported me through the roughest of times. I give the strength to all of those who come next to keep going, to never give up. And when you think it's impossible, just remember to say this piece of advice I got from a very wise woman. I did my best, and my best is good enough. Thank you.
Man, I knew this convo would be powerful, but Hannah is the first person to truly have me shed some tears. What an amazing conversation.
I'm just so touched, and we are super blessed to have had her on our podcast. Thank you so much. Like, it was so epic, Ashley. I can't think of any other words right now.
Yeah, epic is a good one. I mean, it was just an honor to have you grace the podcast, Hannah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I did want to add a bit of clarification we received regarding scholarship opportunities that Hannah mentioned. The Wright State University Scholarship is the Carol Trevino Film Scholarship, named for Wright State alum and Hannah's best friend, Carol Trevino, who passed away in a car accident in 2007 in Louisiana while working on a film. The link is provided in our show description for you guys who want to take a look. Also, the Chinchilla Film Production Scholarship for high school students is still in the works. It's been delayed due to COVID and is expected to launch in conjunction with Neon Movies and OAC sometime in the future. We so look forward to continue our chats with insiders across all facets of the film and TV industry to get those gems.
Absolutely.
And inspiration.
Absolutely. They have been phenomenal.
We so appreciate each and every one of you for sticking with us, and we will see you guys on Thursday for headlines and hot topics. Be blessed.
Bye.